Hello, everyone. Glad to be here. Ryan asked me to kind of produce a video explaining the differences, the priest and the deacon. So let's kind of get right at it. Hopefully, it won't be too boring for you. So first of all, a deacon was ordained for service. That's kind of remember that. So a deacon is for service. His main mission is to proclaim the word, right? Proclaim the gospel, uh, to preach the homily, to teach, right? And helping the poor, right? And we'll talk about those ministries here in just a second. The priest, on the other hand, is ordained for sacrifice. His main mission is to offer the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Jesus Christ at every Mass, right? He is to bring Calvary to us and make us feel like we're there at Calvary, if you will, which is where Christ was crucified. The bishop himself is the guy that controls the diocese, right? He's the one in charge. He's the one closest to Christ. Okay, so the bishop kind of ordains priests and deacons to help him, especially the priests, in a sense, so that they can go out and offer sacrifice, which is a mass, and to reconcile sinners to back to God, and to anoint the sick if they're on the verge of dying, if you will, right? So that's the main mission of the priest. So it's which kind of makes sense in the fact in Protestant churches. Often we'll hear, "Hey, this Protestant pastor is awesome. He's a great preacher." Well, and traditionally in Catholicism, preaching isn't necessarily the first thing for a priest, if you will, right? His first mission is sacrifice, offer the holy sacrifice of the Mass. Second, reconcile sinners. Third, anoint the sick before they die, right? Get them prepared for heaven. That's kind of their mission. I'm not saying a priest shouldn't try to have good homilies and so forth. They should. But that's really not the focus of the ministry priesthood. So, priests and deacons kind of wear the same attire, right? We wear what we call the clergy outfit, if you will, for lack of a better term. The difference is this. Now, on a deacon, I don't wear it today because I wanted to irritate Mrs. Ryan, since she fired me last year from teaching y'all at St. Henry. She's going to kill me for that. But the difference in the clergy outfit is this. So, in our diocese, the bishop has allowed the deacons, permanent deacons, to wear the clergy attire. Now, what I do is I wear a shirt that has a cross. It has the deacon emblem on it, if you will. You probably noticed that last year. I generally wore a cross. Now, I didn't have to. I don't have to have the cross on there. It wouldn't matter. Today, again, to irritate Mrs. Ryan, I wore my mega church outfit, which is just jeans and a shirt, right? I'm trying to act cool, right? She hates that. She always wanted me to be wearing the clergy outfit. But back to the clergy outfit. So I would wear a cross. They don't have to. And I don't have to as well. But I do it just to distinguish me from them, right? The diaconate from them. Now, one way to, often you'll be sitting out in the pews and you'll see everybody dressed in their vestments. Well, how can you know if it's a priest or a deacon that's sitting there, right? The main way to tell is the fact that back in Rome, back in the early days, right, for somebody who had authority, that person would wear circular vestments, right? And that's kind of where the church, honestly, took vestments, right? That's where we got the idea of vestments. So they would wear a circular vestment, and the one underneath them, the subordinate, right, he would wear something square. He would wear square vestments, okay? So in Catholicism, the priest wears what we call a chasuble, which is a circular vestment, okay? Now the deacon wears the square, because he's the servant, right? And on his vestment, you'll see his bars going across like this, okay? And everything's just kind of square, and he has two sleeves, right? The priest doesn't. A chasuble is just kind of out there, right? So that's the main way to tell if you're seeing a deacon or a priest when you're at Mass. Also, let's see here. Okay, so the three ministries of a deacon is this. We have a ministry of charity that includes and not limited to helping the poor, right? Feeding the hungry, visiting the sick, visiting those who are in prison. But also Vatican Council II also stressed that the need for the deacon to be involved in the youth, right? That the deacon should be kind of his primary duty is, I don't know if it's necessarily youth groups, but to be involved um, and getting the youth excited for Christ, right? And really, it's about building relationships, right? Building a relationship with the youth so the youth feel more comfortable being in church, right? That's where I focus. I like hanging out with the youth because that's where all the energy is. That's where the excitement is. You can change the kids, you can change the world, right? So that would be ministry of charity. So that would include youth groups as well. It would also include, like Mrs. Ryan and myself, we do a rock concert out here every year. Not this year with the COVID, but it's an opportunity to bring the parish together, just an event, a social event to bring everybody closer. That is part of the ministry of charity for a deacon, right? And we do, many socials throughout the year like that. We also have the ministry of the word, which means teaching and preaching, right? Before I got fired at St. Henry, I was teaching you guys, right? Sorry, Mrs. Ryan, I'm probably going to do that the rest of the talk. So teaching and preaching. So teaching at St. Henry, teaching RCIA here at Mary Queen of Heaven, teaching CCD, which I run the whole program here. So that's part of my ministry as far as ministry of the word. Now, that also includes proclaiming the gospel, preaching a homily, and so forth, right? Ministry of liturgy is a little bit different. It involves Mass, but it means making sure the liturgy goes right. Okay, for example, especially at Easter vigils, that's a big deal in the Catholic Church. Well, the deacon, which would be me, has to make sure everything is on time, everything is going right, keeping the priest, where he should be in the book and all that kind of stuff, right? Making sure the lectors come up when they want or when they should. Eucharistic ministers, make sure they're up here, or I should say extraordinary ministers of the Eucharist, making sure they're in their spots and so forth. So kind of the organization of the Mass, if you will. That's the ministry of liturgy. Okay, so if a deacon is, let's say, for example, I go on vacation. I generally do not come to Mary Queen of Heaven for Mass. I'll go somewhere else, just kind of take a break from the altar and stuff like that. So I was going to IHM. Well, I go to IHM, and you guys remember Father Nick Rotman. Father Nick would always, he saw me, he would come up to me and say, hey, get dressed. You're going to be serving on the altar. He had a right to do that. A deacon, if he's there in church, has a right, and actually maybe not right as much as he's kind of commissioned, he has to be up on the altar. So I can't sit out there in the pews with you. Okay? Unless, right? So that being the case, Father Nick would always grab me, and I'd have to be a deacon up on the altar. We started going to different churches where they absolutely didn't know me. But the deacon's place is next to the priest. And also, here's a thing you might notice too. Anytime the bishop is here, the priests get pushed aside, and the deacon sits next to the bishop, kind of one little feather in our cap, right? So the deacon always sits to the right of the bishop, even if there's 10 priests here. Let's see here. Okay, so when I got ordained, I want to kind of share this with you. These words that were impactful for me. The bishop laid his hands on me and said these words: believe what you read, teach what you believe, and practice what you teach. And then he hands us the book of the Gospels, which is just the 4 Gospels, right? It's not the entire Scripture. But that's our job, is to protect and proclaim the gospel of the Lord, right? Those 4 Gospels. And, that's a big responsibility. And sometimes we fail at it, right? At least I know I do. I don't practice what I teach as much as I should, right? So I'm human. Um, so here's a deacon can do this. He can baptize. He can proclaim the gospel. He can preach a homily. He helps at Mass anytime he's in church. He presides and blesses marriages. That's kind of one of my favorite things. Um, I wanted to preach at my daughter's wedding so bad. I wrote a homily called Princess Jasmine, right? I'm a big Disney buff, as many of you know. But Kelly always reminded me of Jasmine as far as one of the Disney princesses. And I wrote this, well, in my opinion, this great homily. And I never got to preach it because in the end, her mom and her decided that I should be in the pews and not up on the altar. So I was sad about that, but I did get to preach it to a lady called Sonia. Her name was Sonia, and we're still good friends. I baptized both of her children now, and she reminded me of Jasmine as well. So I did get to use the homily, if you will. The other thing is presiding at funerals. I love presiding at a funeral only in this sense that I get an opportunity to bring the people in the congregation closer to Christ, right? There's nothing more exciting than to see somebody's eyes turn from evil to good, right? Or not necessarily evil, but from sin to goodness, okay? From darkness to light, right? You can't appreciate that until God uses you in that manner. Now, God used me prior to becoming a deacon to convert a man, or a young man, I should say, to the priesthood, right? So he was coming to my Bible studies just as a layperson. Then eventually he became a priest. A girl came in as well. She became a nun. And then I had another one. This is just prior to me becoming a deacon. Had another one come to my Bible studies, and he became a brother, right? A monk. So there was fruit. So, like I said, there's nothing more exciting than to see a change in a person. Doing a 180, if you will, right? Doing a complete turnaround. So that's very exciting. So I like preaching at funerals because every now and then I can see it in their eyes that they got it. It might not have been to Mass in 20, 30 years, and they get it. There's nothing more exciting than that. Uh, the other thing I like to do is preside at marriages. I love marrying, or presiding, I should say, marrying everybody, right? Because I don't marry them. I preside at their wedding, right? But it's so exciting. It's like the one sacrament where it's pure excitement, right? It's low anxiety on the bride, obviously. It's it's exciting to be presiding at this. I don't like doing the paperwork prior to it, but weddings are fantastic. But my most absolute favorite thing to do is to baptize, right? And if I said that before, I'm sorry. But I love baptizing, and I'm going to be able to baptize my granddaughter. So I thought this would be a perfect opportunity, so you're not totally bored to death, to see a picture of my grandbaby. My granddaughter, her name is Princess Gianna. And here is her picture. And all the girls in the class go, "Aw." Hopefully you can see that. I'll kind of do a double check before I send the video. That's her sleeping. And then this is with her eyes wide open. Hopefully you can see that. She says, "I love my daddy," but it should say, "I love my grandpa." I don't know what Kelly was thinking. Nonetheless, that was my grandbaby. So hopefully you think she's adorable like I do. Her name is Princess Gianna. And so I will be baptizing her, which will be kind of the highlight of my life, I guess, baptizing one of my grandkids. So I guess the old saying is, if you knew how great it was to have grandkids, you wouldn't have bothered having children of your own, right? Just go directly to the grandkids. All right, so another favorite thing of mine that happened in my ministerial priesthood or diaconate ministry is uniting a divided parish, right? My first parish I went to is St. Pius, and it was kind of divided. Fantastic groups here, fantastic groups there, but they weren't together, right? They were kind of just cut off from each other. I brought all that together, right? Um, it was exciting over there to see that. And now that parish is probably, I would say, one of the highest number of parishioners in a parish, right? It's a very exciting, engaged community over there now. So I felt like I had a good hand in that. Let's see. I also here at Mary Queen of Heaven, this kind of was a lifeless parish before I got here. Um, you know, they had a good community. The community was strong. Again, they were kind of a little divided as well. But I believe the main thing I brought to this parish is energy, right? Kind of getting them excited, do different things, as well, with the elderly population, with the young kids. I kind of bridged the gap, if you will. It, it made we do a lot of things here at the parish socially. So we brought that community back together. Now we're stronger than ever. And again, I think I had a pretty good hand in that as well. And Mrs. Ryan did it as well. So probably my favorite part of ministry is youth group. And I don't know how much longer I'm going to be able to do that. Can't act like a kid for forever. Probably have a few more years. Um, um, love going to Kings Island, going to haunted houses, and let's see, going canoeing, so forth. I mean, we have a blast every year. Um, the hardest thing about that is watching the youth go, right? Move on to high school, and it's just not the same anymore. Next thing would be teaching RCIA again, just like I said in funerals, seeing somebody kind of catch it. It's awesome to see somebody's eyes light up in RCIA when they hear a truth for the first time that they didn't recognize, right? And they get excited. So seeing people get excited is why I teach RCIA as well. And the same with CCD. I teach CCD, like I think I mentioned before, and run the program, and just kind of little, guiding kids to having a better relationship with Christ. My goal is that they don't lose their faith when they come into high school. So unfortunately, that happens to a lot of our kids. We kind of confirm you, and then you lose the faith for a while. Then you get married, have a kid, then you come back and get baptized. I'm trying to change that, right? Stay in the faith. In high school, stay in the faith in college. And that'll be my mission. One of the highlights of my 10 years is teaching at St. Henry. It was a blast hanging around you guys for a few hours a day. It was awesome until Mrs. Ryan fired me. Just kidding. Well, maybe not. Who knows? Anyway, it was a blast, and I miss you guys. So, lastly, I just want to tell you a story where I yelled at. So, one of my probably not favorite moments was on my birthday, the year I was ordained. I was ordained April 17th that year. My birthday was October 26th. So it was all 2010. So on my birthday, I get this strange phone call from Monsignor Newhouse, who's in charge of the sacrament. And I'm thinking, oh, he's just probably remembering my birthday, right? Just called me to wish me happy birthday. And so I answered the phone, hey, Monsignor, what's up? And he goes, you know why I called? And I said, no. He goes, because somebody starts, his tone changed, and it was really bad. He goes, somebody told me that you are preaching at St. Pius because you don't have your faculties. The bishop did not give you permission, and just goes on a litany of rules I broke and stuff like that, and just give me a butt chew that you wouldn't believe. And it was at least 30 minutes, at least. And so that was hard. And I tried to defend myself. Hey, my pastor wanted me to preach, blah, blah, blah. And he says it isn't his responsibility. You knew it, and you did it anyway, which, made it my fault. So that wasn't pleasant. So that's the least, that's the worst thing that's happened to me as a deacon so far. Hopefully that is it. But I do want to take a moment just to ask you guys to pray for not only deacons, but priests as well, right? Satan, the devil, evil, if you will, is always out to destroy the Catholic Church, right? And there's no better way to do that than hit the hierarchy, which is the bishop, priests, and deacons, right? Pray for us. It's tough. We get temptations that you wouldn't even believe, right? And I can only imagine what it is like for the priests, And I do talk to them, and it's really severe at times. Okay, so we need your prayers because we always pray for you as well. Other than that, that's it. You guys know where to reach me. I'm over here just a short walk away from St. Henry. If you have any questions, not only on the diaconate, but personally, if you have any questions about the faith and so forth, I would be glad to help answer any of that for you and help guide you. That's it, folks. It's an honor and a pleasure to kind of address you again. And let me just end it with my blessing. I bless all of you in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And don't be a stranger. God bless you all. Have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.